There were some moments where I was like, what the hell? Hey everyone, thank you so much for tuning in. Okay, so you're watching Watch This, where I discuss film, television reviews, and also screenwriting tips for beginning writers. Okay, so today we are going to be just kind of going over my thoughts about season 2 of Them, The Scare, which it was interesting, child. If you want to know my thoughts on season 2 of Them, The Scare, stay tuned. So initially when I watched season 1, Them, The Covenant, which came out in 2021, I have to say I was not one of the people that was very much giving the series pushback um, about every single thing about the the series. I will say I have my thoughts about certain episodes and certain things that I feel like the series was very heavy-handed on. However, I did feel like it gave a true idea of like the horror of living in the era of Jim Crow and pioneering into spaces where you are of the first. Like that very much, it seemed very scary. But like I said, there was one episode in particular that I have to say I have specific thoughts about. And we all probably know it's episode 5. And I have my theory of why it was like that. If you're into horror, I'm someone who grew up watching horror, and I know the elements of horror, and I feel like it did capture it. However, I do feel like there were specific things that was dismissed, and I have a theory. And if you want to know that theory, you want to have my opinion of season 1, The Covenant, please comment down below and I'll do a separate video. But I'm not going to talk about that here. But I just wanted to kind of give you an understanding that I was not someone who was against, sorry, the plane is going by. I was not against the series. I do have hiccups and just like some critiques about the series, but I did think that it did a good job of showcasing realistic horror with matched with supernatural horror, and that's all I'm gonna say. But I do have specific critiques. Anyway, so we're talking about Them, The Scare. So the way I'm gonna do this review is I'm gonna give you a little bit of the premise off of season 1 and then just talk about the pros and cons of the entire series that I like and dislike, and also just kind of there were some plot holes that I felt like there were, or just some things that there was a kind of disconnect for me. So I'll talk about them, and then I'll talk about if this series was scary or not. And yeah, just the overall takeaway with this series. We open up with, it looks like someone is held hostage. It looks like they're in some type of warehouse or some type of abandoned space where there is, or factory where there's like toys and gadgets and there's music playing, but this person is held hostage. You can see there's a sheet over their head and they're afraid, but there's a birthday cake in front of them. And then we can see that there's another person in the room. They're kind of antagonizing them in a very eerie way by trying to caress their face, and the person becomes irate, and then we just smash the black. So initially I was like, okay, this is giving serial killer vibes or some type of hostage. It's giving a clue, right? It's giving clue. So we open up with Dawn Reeves. We're introduced to her. She's the lead character. We see that she is waking up in her home. We discover that she lives with her mother and then also her teenage son. And it's also her birthday, which I was like, okay, birthday cake in first scene. it's her birthday. Maybe that's something. Maybe we don't know. We don't know. We also are informed that, you know, her father is no longer with us. He passed away, but he was also a cop. He was a detective, and she is also following in the footsteps of her father. So her father would be very proud, as her mother would say. And she immediately, as she's about to get breakfast, her beeper goes off. So we know, I think they also did a title card stating that it was in the 90s. So this is set in the 90s, and she gets a 911 pager call from her beeper stating like 911, we need you to come to the scene. So instantly we go to the scene. We can see this looks like it's probably South Central area. I believe also she lives like probably in the South Central area, if I'm not mistaken. But this is LA in the 90s. So when we get to the house, it's very eerie. You can see a cop is outside throwing up. So we don't know what we're getting into, but it looks like it's about to be some weird stuff. So she goes inside, and you can see she kind of reminds me of, if anybody watched Luke Cage, Misty, I believe her character was, where she would visualize the crime scene and kind of go through the crime scene as if she's there, so she can put everything into a puzzle of detecting, you know, like investigating the case and figuring out what's going on. She would do the same thing, and she would also record herself. So she kind of reminded me of Misty. Like, she's a really good detective, and she's good at like putting things together. So she goes in, she's recording things, and she's like noticing the little details in the clock. The clock is smashed. There's the house looks crazy. The house almost looks like a bridge between someone who is a hoarder and someone who possibly has like a mental health disorder, where there's a bunch of TVs all facing the bed. There's a bunch of extension cords all over going through the hallway, and she's like looking at different areas in the house. She sees mold on the ceiling. She goes into a closet, and then she sees like dirty diapers and different dolls, which makes her ill. But then she also notices that there is a section in the closet where it looks like something was moved from the closet, and she started to have like almost like a panic attack when she saw that. And that was just like very weird. But I don't know, it felt like she didn't know if like something was triggering her or she felt something. Like, it was just like some type of connection. So when we get to the exact section of where the crime scene is, we instantly see there is a woman inside of the, basically the kitchen cabinet underneath the sink, or underneath your cabinets, underneath your sink. Yeah, I would say there's a woman stuck inside of there, and I'm gonna try to see if I can give a picture. A lot of these streaming services are not allowing you to do screen grabs, so if I can't get a screen grab or a picture, I do apologize. But we see her inside of the cabinet, but she is contorted in a way that is like unworldly. Like, it's like unnatural. Like, there's no way that anyone could have done this physically. Like, put this grown woman inside this little cabinet and contorted her body in this way. It was like almost like it was just like not of this world. So they're coming up with theories. Another cop named McKinney, who was also one of the detectives, he's like, oh, it's the foster son. And I don't know if I said this, but she was a foster mom, and apparently she wasn't a good foster mom. So they were like, oh, it could be McKinney is basically trying to put this on the foster son, because in his eye he is considered a big kid. He played sports. He probably did this, which is very stereotypical. Which he's a young teenage boy, and a lot of times when they were talking about him, they were kind of suggesting that he was a man when he identifying him as a man when he is a boy. So fast forward, we know about this case. We get an idea of this is the first time we ever seen this. However, another case was brought up called the Southside Slayer, and they're trying to figure out if this has anything to do with this case. Now, I have to say, I was like, okay, this is a lot thrown at, like, okay, so you got a Southside Slayer, but we quite don't know if this has anything to do with it. The MO doesn't really match it, but it matches the ethnic group, the demographic. It matches where the killings are. This would be the demographic that the Southside Killer would hit. But this does not fully look like something that the Southside Killer would do. So they're trying to see if the 2 and 2 goes in hand. And then we get introduced to another character, which is it's a guy. He looks like he's trying to hype himself up. And as we see that he is basically a cartoon mascot called Cheddar, and he's doing a performance for kids. Like, it's basically like Chuck E. Cheese, but it's called Cheddar. So he does this performance. He does a good job. And mind you, like, this was supposed to be set in the 90s, which there's more information coming along, but the song that he dances to is Rob Base, It Takes Two. So he's dancing, he's doing like the Cabbage Patch, he's doing all of this stuff, the MC Hammer, and I don't even wouldn't say the MC Hammer, he's just doing like a whole bunch of like dope like hip-hop dance moves, and the kids are going up, okay, like they're having the time of their life. Then his boss, after he finished performing, his boss is like, what the hell are you doing? Like, this is not in the protocol. Like, do you know, like, a kid could have got hurt because he started dancing with a kid. He's like, I just was trying something new, like, you know, like I wanted to, you know, switch it up or whatever. He's like, don't do that. Like, you could already see like there's tension between the boss and the guy named Evan. So he's like, okay, is that it? Because I gotta go to an audition. So he goes to his audition, and we can see like he's dressed up in like 80s gear. He's supposed to be playing the role of like a drug dealer. So instantly when he's doing the casting recording in person, you could tell this is like back in the day. He does not, like, you could tell he is not from the hood, okay? He's not from the hood in the sense of like he's not talking, he's reading the lines, but it is to the point where the casting director, the casting assistant, the guy, Donovan, yeah, I believe his name was Donovan, he was like laughing because it was like, when I tell you it was a funny scene, it was hilarious. But long story short, we're introduced to this character, and my whole thing was like, I'm trying to figure out like how is this connecting all to the serial killer. So we also get an introduction to one of the assistants. Her name was Rhonda. She's like trying to hype up Edmund. She's like, listen, he's like, I think I suck, like I don't know, this is why I probably never getting picked. She's like, no, like keep going for it, like just keep doing your thing, like you seem like a good guy, like it'll happen for you. He's like, for real? Like, he's getting the attention that he needs. And she's like, yeah, like just keep going for it. So he basically gives her a few cheddar tickets, like coins, like Chuck E. Cheese coins, but it's cheddar. And he's like, oh, for your son. And she's like, oh, you remember? And he's like, yeah, oh, but I remember. So he's like, you know, like if you stop by, like I could hook y'all up with some pizza and some soda and stuff like that. She's like, you know what, I'm gonna take you up on that offer. So you can see like she's giving him a little bit of rhythm. Like we're seeing like little elements of like, okay, we have this dynamic going on with Dawn. We have the whole, I forgot to mention that there was a lot of, this was set in the 90s. We see the Rodney King beating on camera inside of the police facility, and you can see some of the cops say just some really derogatory things, and they kind of got checked by, it looked like um, Detective Reeves. She had like a little boo thing, but she's kind of keeping it on the low. I feel like I'm rambling, but anyway, so let me just bring it back in. So ultimately, this was the era of the 90s where there was racial tension going on. There was tension between cops in the department, also the people in the community against the department, and it just was a lot going on. So we're kind of dealing with that element. We're dealing with a serial killer on the loose, the Southside Slayer, and then we're also dealing with this new attempt of this serial killer or this new murder that we don't know what the connection is. So ultimately, I'm like, how is this all connecting? There was one thing that I saw where I was like, okay, Edmund is not all the way here. Like, he seems like a nice guy, but when he left after he was talking to Rhonda, he sat in his car, it was daytime, and he was still sitting in his car at night. He waited for them to leave work, which was very weird. And I'm just like, what is this going on? And we don't really have a connection to like what is going on, like how is these all connected. So then Rhonda goes to see Edmund at his job. Chatter, she brings her son. You can see he does really well with the son. And then also, we also saw in this episode that Dawn is really good with kids too. She got a chance to talk to one of the foster kids, a little girl, and she instantly was able to get the little girl to open up to her, and so did Edmund. Like, those were two comparisons that I saw in the first episode. So when Edmund is introduced to Rhonda's son, I forget what his name is. Was it Kenny? I think it was Kenny. I forget. But she says to him, you know what? I get a lot of scripts. I'm going to bring some thoughts to you if I find something that I think you would be good for. And he's like, okay, really? So eventually she does. She contacts him and tells him, you know what? I found something. I don't know if you're going to like it, but I found a script about a serial killer. And he was like, a serial killer? And she's like, be open to it, you know, like, you never know, like, you may be able to just like give a good twist on it. And he's like, okay, like, I'm open to it. So then this is where I was like, okay, clearly there's something brimming up in this storyline with Edmund. Could he possibly be the Southside Slayer? Could he possibly be this new killer? We don't know. So initially finding all of this out, I would have to say, let's start with the cons. I want to start with the pros. I want to start with the cons because the pros, I'm going to spoil some stuff. So the cons, I would say, it took a little while for me to understand the dynamic of connecting everything together. It felt like there was plot holes. I do understand now why the opening scene happened the way it did. However, I did not understand. There's still plot holes of like, we never got a full understanding of who the Southside Killer was. And I'm going to be very vague of saying things because I do want you to watch it and I don't want to really spoil too much. I will talk about connections and I'll try not to spoil things. However, That was a kind. So there were like plot holes that I felt like I could not find the connection between the Southside Killer and the actual new real killer. Also, the new victims that we had, there was a few victims, like the first lady, her name was Miss Motts. I understood why she was murdered. That was very clear to me. I'm not going to say why. You have to watch the series. The second person, the second victim, I did not understand. I didn't see the connection. I don't know why I don't know why the killer picked this person. Now, ultimately, I understand that the killer, and I'm just going to refer to the killer as the red-haired man. I'll refer to the killer as the red-haired man because that could be multiple people. I don't understand why the second victim, and I'll just leave it at that. I don't understand why that victim was picked. It felt like they were just picking black people, just picking people of color in the neighborhood. So I don't understand. If somebody knows the connection to why the second victim was picked, also why was the victims putting the mirror, putting like coverings over the mirror? I understood that they would see the 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 redhead man, but I don't understand like what does that have to do with the storyline? You get what I'm saying? Like I'm trying to figure that out. That I didn't understand that. That was two. And so it took too long for the common connection. I didn't understand the connection of some of the other victims. Like the second victim, I don't understand why they killed him. The third victims, I understood the connection. And then the fourth victim, I understood the connection. However, it felt like they just randomly started to pick random people. And I just felt like I wish it was more so in line with the first murder. Like the first murder made sense. After that, it started to get, you just picking random. Like I needed to know more. And I understand the duality, and that's all I'm going to say because I don't want to say what it is because I don't want to spoil the twist. But I know why they started to pick things, but I just don't know specifically why those people. That's what I'm saying. So yeah, that was the thing that I didn't quite understand. Okay, so let's talk about pros. The pros of the series. I love the connection with season one. That's all I'm gonna say. The connection with season one just showed generational trauma and how it is, if it's not confronted, it can really blow up in your face. Like it not only will it genetically can affect you, but there's elements in your life that the cycle can also, it's like almost like the entity of the traumatic experience can follow you. Like I freaking love that dynamic of just like generational cycles, trying to break generational cycles, and sometimes going in between that and trying to shift the narrative can also backfire as well. We see that when with Athena, Dawn's mother, and the thing that she did that kind of backfired, and I would say ultimately kind of caused this. We'll also see this with Edmund when he went to go approach somebody and introduce himself. However, he did not, and I think if he would have properly introduced himself, I think maybe all of this would have not happened. I also think that this is another thing that's in the Black community. A lot of trauma, generational cycles and trauma comes with not speaking up. There was a lot of secrets inside of the storyline, secrets within between mothers, secrets with just secrets in family and within siblings and things like that nature, that I feel like if people would have spoke up, they would have been able to deal with these things, but they didn't talk about anything. They kind of swept things under the rug. And that's what happens with a lot of black communities. And I understand why, because sometimes it's like really hard to talk about things from the past. But I do feel like some of this could have been resolved if they would have had a conversation. And also, I love the concept of like, it felt like this entity in this series had a lot to do with your shadow self. Now I understand the redhead man felt like the shadow self, and that all of the turmoil personified on to this person, but we also see how another person was confronted with their shadow self that could have also consumed them, but they were able to like push them to the, like, I don't want to say push them to the side, but allow the shadow to be removed, so that they didn't have to uh allow that shadow self to consume them. So I felt like the generational cycles and the generational trauma that kind of passes down was a great concept. I felt like the shadow self idea was a really great concept. The only thing is, I'm like, there was one thing, and there, if you know, you know, like, I don't want to tell, but there was a character, a child, that witnessed someone be murdered. Well, no, a child witnessed someone's death. And I wanted to know more about the child, in the sense of, because the way people would talk about this child as if this child was evil, but I don't think the child was evil. I think that the child needed a bit of attention. I did not like when this person went to their foster parent, and the way they were talking about the child as if they had to send them back into foster care because they were a growing teenage boy and their loins. I'm just like, what are you, what was it? It felt very stereotypical, as if like, I don't know. I didn't like that part. I was just like, well, did he attack this girl? If he didn't, it felt like they were, and also I didn't like the fact that they was, I have an issue with that. So let me know, like, if you want me to do a spoiler concept, or we could discuss it and we have a little dialogue in the comments. I didn't like that because it felt like you were adopting these black children for other reasons. I don't know. It's just like just throw away the child if you can't really deal with it. It just is. I didn't like it. I ain't like it. I ain't even gonna lie. I ain't like it. So that was something that, along with like the child witnessing a death, I really want to know how much of this child was people not wanting to tolerate or just like help foresee this child get to a place where um they can really elevate and grow. Because I don't know, like, it felt like the person didn't spiral until they hit a breaking point, and it took years for that. So I'm like, if they got the proper attention, they would have been like, yeah. I just wanted to hug this person so bad. I just really felt bad. And it really speaks about the adoption system, foster care system too. It's just like, yeah, it was a lot. But yeah, I love the connection with that. Okay, so last part, not really spoilers, but there was a few questions I had about who the hell was the Southside Killer. I was kind of confused about that. Was the Southside Killer the same, actually the person that they said that the murderer was for the redhead man? I'm not gonna say who that person was, but if you know, you know. Was it that person? Which I initially thought, like, it's some weird stuff going on in the LAPD. Like, what is going on? Like, that was weird. I didn't understand that concept. It's like they never got the killer, which makes me think that the person that they stated that these murders were for was the Southside Killer. Secondly, the ending. Okay, so the ending. First of all, okay, so at the end, this is kind of a spoiler, but we see the tap dance man. If you know who the tap dance man, you seen season 1, you know who the tap dance man is. I'm not gonna say why we see the tap dance man. You have to watch the series. But what does this mean for the person who saw the tap dance man? Will this person follow in the footsteps of the other person who met the tap dance man? What does this mean for season 3? I feel like, okay, for predictions for season 3, I feel like the lead character is going to be another woman. I feel like a woman is going to be the lead character. I wonder will we be introduced to any of the other characters from season 1? Um, and okay, lastly, let's talk about Scare. Well, the takeaway that I got was like just like the generational cycles, and then just like dealing with our shadow self, and just how when you hold trauma in and you allow your shadow to overcome yourself, it can be very toxic, very toxic. And then you're already dealing with other stuff in the world, like very toxic. And okay, this is another thing that I didn't understand. There were 3 people, okay. The mother, why was the mother shaking? Like, did she have a heart condition or a disorder? I didn't understand that. Let me know. Did she have Perkins? I understood that the dad had the father had a heart condition. We know that. The mother, Athena, who played Pam Grier, I don't know why she had her condition. The son had OCD. What did that have to do with the storyline? Like, tell me, did anybody from season 1 have these? I was just trying to figure out. Actually, the son having OCD could have something to do with the mother and her condition, because I don't know. That's what I was, these little things like that, I was just like trying to figure out why did the son, I mean, the son can just have OCD, but why did we put this here? Like, why does the son have OCD? Or did you just write in the son has OCD? That's what I was trying to figure out. I do love the fact that season 1, we know that there was a lot of racial, I don't want to say loathing. Well, yeah, we had racial loathing um in season 1, and how a little bit of that trickled down, and we could see it in some of the characters of like not really understanding who they are. And I wonder if that if sometimes some things can inherently be connected to people, even like characteristics. I think I also thought I saw a connection there. So what does the tap dance man, what is the tap dance man doing here? I think I have a premonition of like the person who saw the tap dance man. We saw that this person also said F the police. We know how the tap dance man interacted in the first season of retaliation. I don't know. I don't know exactly what the tap dance man, but he might be convincing that person to do some things. So I'm just curious. So what would you say is your predictions for season 3? Like I said, I think a woman is going to be the lead, probably uh, a similar looking woman that was in this season. Um, I wonder what the theme is going to be. So first and foremost, this series was called The Scare. I have to say, I don't care what none of y'all say. There was some scary scenes in this series, okay? Like, there were some moments where I was like, what the hell? Like I said in the first season, I love how they play around with realistic horror, also mixed with supernatural horror. The first crime scene, the lady being stuck inside of that cabinet, I could not look at that for too long. That was like scary looking at that. Two, even the way the victims were murdered, that was freaky. There was a scene where uh McKinney uh, was addressing Kel. That was scary. And that was like more realistic scary. I was scared for this young boy to be in custody with uh, this officer. It freaked me out. The scene when Edmund, the date night scene at Edmund's apartment, and he came out dressed up, and that's all I'm gonna say. That freaked me out. Cause imagine being in an apartment with somebody like that and you don't know what's going on. They went from one reaction to another and then another reaction of not understanding. Also, was Edmund on the spectrum? That was another thing. Or he was just stuck at the age of 12. That was another thing I wasn't quite sure. Clearly, his childhood had a lot to do with his personality. He really meant well. Like, I could tell he really meant well, but it's just like the system failed him. The foster care system failed him. Just like his foster parents failed him. It just was a lot going on. I also wonder if there was other trauma that like passed on that affected him. Anyway, but yeah, like just the passing on of generational trauma, and then also yeah. That was the scene that was scary. What else? The scene, it was another scene. Oh my god, in the best when they were like the marching band scene, that was kind of freaky. Um, yeah, y'all, like it was just like eerie. Like I can't imagine seeing any of this stuff in real life. This would be scary. Like if you experience this, yo, the scene where Kel came downstairs and he saw the Rodney King beating, and he saw what he saw sitting on the couch. That freaked me out. I don't care what nobody said. That was like eerie. It was another scene in the bathtub when Athena went to the bathtub and she saw what she saw at the bathtub. That was freaky. It was just eerie, y'all. It was another scene where the son was like, he was like, you was getting that good. I couldn't believe he said that. I screamed when he said that. I was cracking up. There were some moments in this series that was funny, but there was also some racial moments that was just like, girl, this stuff ain't no joke, okay? Yeah, but anyway, that concludes like my takeaway of the things that I liked. I didn't like the loopholes of like I didn't quite understand what the takeaway of just like identifying generational trauma, dealing with it, overcoming your shadow self, just like I love that aspect about it. But yeah, like let me know your season 3 predictions. Please like, comment, and subscribe. I will catch you on the next one.